Hey there, it's Nacho here, and this is the Agentic Project, the podcast where Danny, my co-host, and I bring you the minds building the future of agentic AI. This is your front row seat to get all the tips and tricks to stay ahead of the curve. Are you ready? Let's dive right in. We are back. This is episode 5, and today we have Martin, the CTO from Databutton. We're very happy to have you here, Martin. Welcome.
Thanks for being here. Excited to be here.
Hi, Martin.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So we want to get kind of straight to the point, Martin, just to get the audience into context. Databutton, what are you guys building? Tell us a little bit about the product, from there we go in.
Yeah. No, Databutton is basically a AI agent system that you today can log into and you can chat to basically build the apps that you need. The most people that we have that are seeing success with Databutton are like business owners trying to make their business more efficient. They might want to like rebuild their CRM or bring some like perplexity workflows into prospecting, or they might want to do some, clever churn analysis and stuff like that. So it's a lot of like internal business tools, and there's a lot of like external facing apps. But there's like a lot of business owners looking to make their stuff more efficient.
Awesome. So could we say that this data button is focused, as you said, business owners, so people with maybe lacking of technical background, not able to code, then they use data button?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we don't have professional software developers at all. So what we're trying to do is to basically gap close that. So it's absolutely non-technical people, and we've made some choices in that world to make it a bit simpler. So like we don't expose the entire code base, and we kind of allow a set of more complex use cases than a lot of the other people in this space currently. Meaning that we allow our users to build like great front ends in React and whatnot, which is similar to what you see a lot of places. But in Databutton, you can also prompt up your own like APIs and backends, meaning that you can like support complex workflows. You can do like integrations to a lot of systems. You can build your own agentic systems really easily. So you can basically
Mhm.
prompt up like a Python backend and lean into the worlds of LangChains or Agnos or these type of agent tools. So we see like a lot of people building sort of replacement for like other tools that they already have to make them simpler, easier, and nicer and stuff. But we also see a lot of people tinkering with like agentic systems for themselves. So the last set of features that we've released is around like this MCP protocol, which I'm sure you guys have heard about a lot. So we have now like an MCP template. So there's people who's trying to bring the stuff that they build and not only have their own UI to support it, but you can also bring it into, Cloud for desktop and Cursor and these like other MCP clients, right? So yeah, no, we're head on focusing on the absolute non-technical or the people who are not coding proficient or do not want to spend their time debugging code. That's
Uh,
right.
So, I guess this is aligned with all this hype of vibe coding that we see out there in Reddit, LinkedIn. I
Yeah.
guess this is one of the tools to start getting started with vibe coding.
Hmm.
Would you say that these tools could put? Well, no, my first question is: have they already? Do you need a CTO? If someone with no technical background has an idea of a SaaS or whatever product, an AI agent, with these tools, can they vibe code like a full stack app, fully functional, ready for 1,000 users to use the platform?
I personally absolutely think so. And I think that you can do that in a multitude of tools today. I don't think that is particular to Databutton as a tool. But I think it does have some caveats. Like it does take some time. So you have to be willing to spend the time that it takes to actually go all the way. And there's a lot of people who want their sort of startup to be built in like a weekend. And while you can get super far in the weekend and you can launch it, you can get the first, little few users in and start to test on whatever. For people who's built stuff before, it's typically the time that it takes, I think, that is taking the toll on people. So you feel great during the first couple of days of vibe coding. You feel like progress is just, all over the place. There's like pages spinning up, APIs spinning up and stuff. But then as the system starts to kind of become a bit more complex, that's I think when people have to think like, am I the one that's gonna spend 3-4 hours a day building this out, or should I delegate that to someone else? I think over time, over the next set of weeks and months, I think we'll see like an increasing amount of these agentic systems like ourselves being able to do a lot more autonomously, meaning that we can weed out a lot of the bugs and the feedback loops and whatever that the human has to be involved with today. But it's 100% absolutely possible. Like we have multiple examples of both startup founders shipping like awesome tools that's bringing in tens of thousands of MRR a month, and we're also seeing people rolling out like kick-ass CRMs, kick-ass like new ERP systems or whatever internally. That is showing great success. So it's absolutely possible. You need to be able to invest the time.
Actually, you were mentioning something very interesting, and it's related to the caveats, because you are targeting non-techie people. So at least my experience with these tools, it's like, as you were mentioning, like the beginning is very fast. You don't need technical knowledge at all. But at some point, it feels like you are stuck. I'm talking in terms of maybe security, because if you are non-techie, you will accept whatever the LLM is telling you. But at some point, for example, I don't know, the other day there was a new bug discovered in Next.js that it's easy to bypass, well, not easy, but it's possible to bypass authentication. If you are a non-techie user, you definitely don't know how to handle this stuff. So I'm wondering till what point these solutions like yours are ready to scale. Let's say if you are non-techie at all, is it possible to scale within some security guarantees?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. I think so we've been in this space now. Like we started to build this AI agent system in the end of 2023, when the best model around was like GPT-4 Turbo. So I think after this space kind of blew up, I kind of attribute Bolt as the sort of hero, like StackBlitz and Bolt as kind of the product that kind of created this, or at least broke through first, and then Lovable and Databutton kind of came in the tailwind of that and kind of finding their own paths. I think I think what we kind of realized by the end of 2024, is that there's a lot of things more than just writing code that's needed to either ship a startup or to build a really really helpful tool for your business. Um, so one of the things that we did in our V2 launch, which was February 11th, was to introduce like a project management board, effectively like a tasks as we call it. And this is like part of like a I would say like some architectural decisions that we're doing where the LLMs aren't writing all the code. So like we're owning, like for instance, we do like a native Firebase integration, which is Google's product for database and auth and whatnot. So we have a very native integration with that, meaning that the security code is written by us. And this is not the LLM's decisions on how you're supposed to do auth and whatever. So this is controlled by you. So if you go into Databutton, like you will be able to toggle access, like whether things are protected or unprotected by every page, by every API, and then we own the security code to guard it out. We also host everything, both the front and the back end. So we're kind of taking care of the security exposure we have there. That being said, there are no shortage of ways to trick your way around ending up in a position where you're vulnerable. I think since we're catering to a bit more like to the serious end of the spectrum of people who really wants to ship something that typically tried a set of other tools or like work with some agencies and whatever. And I think what we do to kind of combat this, which I very much agree with the point, is that we have a lot of in-product support, which means that the vast majority of people who's using Databutton have interacted with at least one person from the team. And that's not necessarily because you need to help to like debug a code or like a page is frozen or like whatever it might be, but we're offering like some sort of insurance on that end. So like I have been in like due diligence calls with some of our customers to help speak to the security and whatever of the system. We've been doing like data processing agreements for our clients who's shipping into more like enterprise clients. So for instance, like we have one of our customers are selling like content marketing tools to a very big consultants in the world. And in order for that to be in use, it needs to go through like a set of reviews. So then we do the penetration testing and we do the necessary, dot the I's and cross the T's to make sure that this is a ready thing. We do care like annoyingly much about our user shipping products, and I think I think that today it's a big insurance for people to have someone that can sort of help you understand, like bring comfort, I guess. Like as a first time product shipper, this is a very scary thing. Like, is this going to scale? Is this going to be secure? Am I sort of leaving myself like exposed in some way, right? Now, how this will be addressed by systems and like tools and apps in the future, I guess we'll see. In the meanwhile, we're closing these loops with basically humans. So we take super pride in having humans in the loop. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is something that we invest in. Every single engine, like we're a team of 7. So we're basically like 4 engineers in Databutton, but all of them are talking to at least like 50 to 100 customers every week. And this is typically what it's about. So yes, I do think that if you don't have like a support network of maybe like full stack devs or whatever it might be around you, I think having that as an angle to this is a really sort of grounded experience. So you can be comfortable about shipping stuff. That I agree with. But these security vulnerabilities like hits everyone. This is not in particular for non-techies. This is not particular for vibe coders. Like this is just how the world works. Like you'll see all kinds of services go down for various reasons from time to time. This is just a fact of life. But to have the necessary sort of mechanisms in place so you can comfortably run fast, even though you have all these worries in your head, that I think we need ways to mitigate. Our current way of mitigating that is to talk to people and to share the experiences that we have. So we all have kind of experiences in enterprise software. We've been building stuff for the BPs and Shells and Exxons and Chevrons of the world over the past like 10, 15 years. So we have some respect for the complexities of the let's say like the security regimes of applications that are being built. But it's a very, 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 very interesting topic, I think. If you aren't comfortable with that, I don't know how this will look, if this is going to be like support groups, or if this is going to, maybe the security engineers of the world are going to be like the next heroes, which is going to be delegating out their expertise and their like hourly basis to security review and stuff. It's very unclear. I think some measures you can do is kind of leave some of the code basically as part of the platform, which is the way the previous set of tools fix this in the world of like bubbles and retools and whatever, right? You delegate that responsibility to the platform side, and you mostly worry about the business logic. That's how we treat it now. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
I'm curious how you guys think about this stuff.
No, I totally agree with you. First of all, I do believe also that, I mean, there's a lot of people trying to build 100% automated systems. I do not think this is the proper way to do it. I think that you should be automating 90% of your workflows and leave the last 10% to be reviewed by a human. Also, we were discussing with Nacho about Databutton before our call, and something that I mentioned to him is, and that I really like about the platform, and that I do not see in other platforms like Bolt, for example, is that you really see that the knowledge that you guys have about having built other systems before, it's there, right? Because whenever you prompt Databutton to build an app, it lays a plan for you, and it's quite, it seems that you are talking to someone that have implemented projects before. It lays down a very well-defined plan, and you execute step by step, right? Well, if you are, I don't know, for example, in Bolt, you just prompt and you keep building without knowing what's going on. You just keep building. So I really appreciate having this kind of plan that you can follow while building. And I think the knowledge that you have integrated there, it's quite powerful. I actually have another question regarding scale of Databutton, because you are mentioning you are how many people in the team?
We are now 8.
8, and you're doing like a lot of customer support.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, like, since you have these native implementations of the Firebase South, the Supabase, etc., I guess you have to keep updating this code according to newer releases, etc. How do you manage to scale? Like, with just 8 people having to handle all these customer supports while maintaining the code? Because I guess this is one of the problems that many startups have, right? So
Yeah. No. So the cool thing here is that like our own app or our own stack, like how we build Databutton, has the exact same anatomy than a app that is built in Databutton. So Databutton as an app is built in React. It's heavily leveraging Firebase and Firestore for both for authentication and for the database side and for the security rules and everything. We also run a bunch of different fast API servers to like our whole like the whole RAG setup and the like research stuff and whatever is all of this is handled like that. So our incentives towards building the product and increasing the, let's say, like reliability and comfort of the apps being built in Databutton is sort of one and the same. So there's a lot of carryover experience between the two. But I also think that this world is in such fast movement, like things are changing all the time, and no one really knows what the right answer is. So we are under the impression that it's a bit of an advantage to be a small team at the minute, because that means that you can make decisions over lunch. You can meet for half an hour and then like realign the whole company, for instance, like the ship, like the task space system of executing. Like we too was like a prompt box and like a backseat driver and like to sit there like that. Like we were like that in November, December, and the rationale for bringing in the tasks and plans was basically Sonnet 3.5 changed the game for a lot of people in this space. Sonnet 3.5 was like released in June, like late June, I think, or like July, around that time. And prior to that, a lot of the errors in these tools were like coding errors, right? So it was like debugging stuff. But with Sonnet, a lot of that changed. Sonnet is exceptionally good at writing code. Unfortunately, it very often writes correct code for the wrong problems. So it's not as reflective. It's not as clever in the sense of understanding what it's supposed to do. So this is kind of the the blocker to shipping apps in early 2024, I would argue, was like technical competence. That reflected like how we experienced that was the type of support questions we got was a lot around like coding doesn't work and like this stuff doesn't work and like button clicks doesn't work and whatever. After Sonnet, it changed into being like how do I approach this stuff? Like how should I think about building like an invite system in my app? Like what's the pieces that I need? And expressing that in one prompt is very difficult. So this is why we introduced the whole task-based things, because it turns out that keeping the entire plan and the entire like architecture of your app, like this is a builder skill. This is a skill you get after building a set of systems, right? And now there's a bunch of new builders or non-builders entering this space. And this is part of what they really need help with, is to sit with someone and not discuss the layout of a particular page or whatever, but to think about my system. Well, so I have these users, they're supposed to come in here, they're supposed to log in and sign up there, and then you get some inputs along the way. That means that you need to like do the authentication stuff like this, or that means that you should implement like Stripe like that, or that means that you should your database structures look something like this then, right? So the whole tasks and plan thing is an attempt at sort of removing the human from the innermost loops, and I think we've been able to kind of remove a small set of that. Let's say 20%, but there's so many things more that you still have to give feedback on along the way and all this kind of thing. So we will continue to increase the abstraction level at which you talk to. Our sort of idea is that it should be like the dream. Like the dream would be that talking to Databutton is similar to talking to like a CCaaS agency or like a really, really good, like your best friend CTO developer person who can just like sort it out for you, right? Like that's the target. Whereas I think what a lot of other tools are doing, which is equally cool, but speaks to sort of a different audience, is for sort of builders without coding skills, but they bring something else to the table. They bring maybe some design flair to the table, or they bring some product thinking, which is new into the mix, right? So then you need to build different levers. Then you need to let them do pixel perfect design and give them the tools to get their vision out and onto the screen, right? Whereas a lot of what we think about is functional stuff and pragmatic stuff and robust stuff at the expense of maybe all the flexibility and like all the smallest dials to tweak are kind of not there by default. Does that make sense? So we kind of try to help you get the whole system up and less so worry about the smaller intricacies of the application, right? So I think what you're seeing with these tools now is that they're kind of hardening in and focusing on a set of different use cases or a set of different people and like enabling a different part of the world to do new cool stuff. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's cool because if you're non-techie, you just focus on the front end, and it seems that everything is perfect. But if you have a bit of technical knowledge, this is actually what you're describing is what you really care about, right? Like the structure of your project, that the integrations are quite safe. So I think it's quite cool that you focus on this use case, because definitely this is a real problem that maybe like this not very non-techie at all audience have, but definitely if you're a bit techie and you're in this starting to code stuff and you have a bit of understanding of how things work, you definitely care about these things.
I think one important thing is to sort of realize like what is really the blocker for someone who is not a proficient coder or someone who hasn't built like a system before and that knows how that is successfully looking. What are the real blockers for that? You know, because at some point that was code, right? No doubt. And then you could use something like Bubble, for instance, which kind of pioneered the whole hyper custom visual programming language, right? But that's just another language. That's just like a pure alternative to learn how to code, right? So I think like as the world of sort of LLMs out of the box increasingly, address these needs. So it's like coding is fixed, right? Like you can get code produced. That's not an issue anymore. But now it's like, how do I think about systems? Like how do I stitch all of these individual pieces of code or individual pieces of logic that I have in my head? How do I stitch that together into like a full system that will work well? I think this is like such a big gap. And part of the reason why we do this task stuff is because now we can start to learn. We can start to understand like, okay, so someone wants to build like a CRM with AI prospecting into it. So like Perplexity will automatically, fill out the rest of the rows and do prospect analysis and whatever, right? And then as we see more and more of these things go through, we start to understand like what is actually a successful recipe for these people to both ship fast and get like value right away, which means that you need to scope down because you typically have like really, really big ambitions, right? Like you have all these hopes and dreams that you want to finish. So part of it is just down scoping, like get that into like a reasonable set of things that you can ship and get some value up right away, but also with a follow-up plan on how you can continuously improve it, right? So I think that as we see more and more and more of these things get built, we like as humans, but also our like agentic system starts to learn and we starts to know the edge cases. And for anyone who's worked in the world of like system integrations or like a bit of custom software, you are a sum of the edge cases you've seen, right? The path to the happy path is easy. The happy path is always easy. But the more edge cases you see and the more weird stuff, the more bugs that you see, all of a sudden you start to realize that no two apps are really the same, right? So this learning I think is super exciting, and I think that like the world of plans and tasks gives us sort of a framework to improve all the time. That excites me a lot.
Yeah. Actually, that you were mentioning now about bug fixing. What we have seen is that it's something quite common. You're using 3.7's Claude 3.7 behind the scenes to power
Quite a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're still in a phase where when you're using it happened with, to be honest, it happened with Databutton at some point. Like, but it happens a lot with Bolt as well and Lovable. That at some point the LLM keeps introducing bugs that it's not able to solve by itself, or it managed to solve the bug after many iterations and after changing the code multiple times. I'm not sure. What's your take on that? Do you think that this is a problem like that? It's because the capacity of Claude 3.5, 3.7, it still misses some kind of reasoning. Do you think this will be fixed with future releases, or do you think it's more something that has to be fixed on the platform, like in your case, you are using like these native integrations, implementations. Right. Do you think this can be solved like that, or how do you think this should be approached?
Yeah, no. So I think, first of all, this is how a developer works too. Very few developers write all the right code at the first trial. So they typically spend a couple of iterations to get the things right. So I think whether we'll ever get an LLM out of the box that can sort of one-shot everything, that would be like superhuman capabilities and like borderline AGI as far as I'm concerned. With that being said, we've lived in this space now, all of us, I think, for the past sort of year, and we can make some observations, which is interesting, such as Sonnet 3.5 was released in June, July, and there were no big model updates until like Claude 3.5 did like a V2 back in like late October and whatever. But in that time frame, these tools somehow, like the tools powered by those, such as Cursor or Databutton or Lovable or Bolt or like whatever, they somehow improved a lot over that time frame, despite the underlying LLM stingray still. So I'm a very big believer that even if there's like no dramatic LLM improvements, these tools, like as a whole, will improve a lot. I think there's a couple of things that not a lot of people think about, which is that these LLMs are trying to mimic being developers or CTOs or whatever, but they're all blind. It is the equivalent of a developer sitting only with VS Code open and like the logs output and whatever, and you don't really see what you're building. That is such a difficult task, and very few developers in the real world would succeed in that. The way that you typically work is you sit side by side and you look at the screen consistently, and you sit with the code editor and another, or like some no code editor for that matter, and you do something and you test it, do something, you test it, do something, test it, and that's your iteration loop. I think when you sit and work with these tools, you very often like copy paste like images, like you screenshot the page and you fire it in, or you screenshot and annotate and you say, "Hey, idiot, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. Like this is white text and white background. What are you doing?" It's like, shit, let me fix it, right? But so I think that once we start to build in more and more feedback loops, like the easy one to imagine is that it can always see a screenshot of the current page or slice of the app they're working on. That's like a very small incremental step. I think the primary reason why that's not in all the tools right now is just a cost question, because everyone is basically giving like just relaying the cost of the LLM over to the user, right? So doing that would introduce like a quite a bigger cost per prompt, basically, if you're always going to do that. But the real interesting part is when you can combine something like a browser use sort of setup, and you can actually have like a QA agent which can click through the flows, because that's where the 95% of the errors are. Like think about like you've built like a registration system where 3 different user profiles can register. You can register as like this person or this person or that person, and depending on who you are, you're going to be sent to different onboarding flows or dashboards or whatever, right? And to have an agent that like they know this, an agent would know this. I think everyone is pretty well at describing this like off the bat, and everyone is getting it kind of right. But it takes, I don't know, let's say between 5 and 10 like retries where you go in and you feedback what you experience, and this is sending me the wrong place. So in this one actually I need another field on the onboarding flow, right? Like these type of things. So I think once we get agents that can efficiently, like token efficiently, for like a reasonable price and a reasonable speed, can start to click around in your application, makes up their own meaning, then I think that will remove like 70-80% of these type of things. This isn't really an issue unless you're sitting and staring at it, right? So I fundamentally believe that these tools, ourselves included, as the cost per token goes down and as the sort of token efficiency goes up, there's so many levers, there's so many opportunities you can do to dramatically improve it, because these doesn't have the full toolkit that like a professional developer or agency has yet. And I think that's what we'll really see or that's what I hope to see as the token price kind of goes down. I very much hope that instead of just reflecting the current tools at a lower price point, that it enables the builders of these tools, such as ourselves, to just use more basically people
Mm.
or like agents or tokens to be the support network that a developer typically has.
Mm.
Someone who tests the app regularly, someone who could do this, someone who could do that, right? These type of things,
Mm.
I think is the big things. I fully understand like and agree that this is an issue today, and I think that if you call up hundreds of our customers, they would say the same, right? Like this is absolutely not a secret. Which comes back to my original point: is that can you do it? Yes. Does it take time? Yes. And where do you spend your time? In these feedback loops, right?
Yeah. You just mentioned a topic that I faced myself on Saturday. So this Saturday was like vibe coding using Databutton. I was building a very simple web app that I wanted to use myself, some sort of like daily habit tracker so that I can
Hmm.
keep track of at the end of the year. I can see every day that I've done X habit, whatever. I go every day, log in, check, okay, down to the calendar. And you get well, not like tools like Databutton, Lovable, but you guys have democratized the having a CTO or a developer on your site for a non-coder like me. I've never coded myself
Hmm.
until I started with vibe coding, which I don't consider that coding because I'm just writing like text. But then the fact that this has been democratized. I have interacted with similar tools with ChatGPT and so on,
Mm.
and I expect to have code functioning soon and fast because
Yes.
I also see it and LinkedIn and YouTube, everyone vibe coding, doing collabs, and I expect that I'm gonna have what I want kind of soon. We have built that. We are like our generation is impatient. We want everything
Hmm.
for yesterday, and companies have managed to adapt that, like Amazon or whatever, with deliveries, whatever, and then they go big. But now you have made this so easy for everyone that we expect fast results and cheap because right
Hmm.
now like using data button, what the first plan is $20, then it goes up to 50 for credits.
Yep.
You get enough credits to do whatever stuff, but then you're gonna need more credits. Where I'm going is my expectations now are probably different than a developer 1 year ago because I
Hmm.
don't know. I ask with ignorance, and I expect everything to work fast, fine, and cheap. Yeah, that's not real. And but the thing is, I get that frustration. I go to my reactionists, go to Discord, go to Reddit. Why is this not working? I spent 50 credits on this bug that been like hasn't been fixed in like 3 outputs, and I spent 20 credits on that. And you're a team of 8. um Not only, as you were saying earlier, that you're like on top of every cloud of every user, are you managing, or how are you approaching this angry ignorant vibe coders that are not aware of how amazing what they are getting done in an hour or in 30 minutes is? How are you dealing with their frustration, and how do you think, how are you planning on teaching or educating these people that this
Mm.
is not as given as easy as it seems?
Yeah. No, I think like yes, yes, you're right, right? But I think a lot of this frustration is if you talk to developers, that same frustration exists very much. They've been sitting for the past 3 days with the same flickering CSS issue or centering that div or getting this particular agentic system to work, right? So for someone coming to that space, it's not particularly scary. I think it primarily comes from like a place of passion. I think that really means that you just really want to make it work. And I think this is the reason why it's so important to have some sort of human touch in the loop in the current state of the market. Now, maybe in a year it's less important, right? But I think to be able to, if you've been sitting like that for a weekend, and you still want your app to actually be there. So like either you drop off and you say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm going to check back in 6 to 12 months. That tells me that the app is not so important to you. If the app is very important to you, we'll help you get past that one thing, and we'll both learn something, and then the next time it'll be easier. And something that like our customers tend to say is that, hey, can I just get like a second pair of eyes on this? This is going to take me a week. I'm sure it's going to take you guys like 5 minutes to iron out. I'm sure you've seen it multiple times. And for us, the important stuff is we do this because these interactions, it's what we need to funnel back into the system to understand so we can keep reframing prompts into better specs so we can get higher confidence on solving tasks such as there's a set of tasks which is more difficult than you'd like it to be today. And an example is to integrate with like externals, like OAuth for calendars, for instance, right? There's a set of these things where you need to rely on external systems, which is annoyingly difficult today because of the many moving pieces. So I think just as we see more and more, like this will be better. I still think that if you really want your app finished, it's still cheaper and faster than to hire a team of three to finish it.
For
Um,
sure.
so we gauge a lot basically on, do you really want to finish this? If so, let's do it. We'll figure out a way. If that is to pair you with someone in our network, which will help you, a couple of hours a week to get you over the hurdles, or if that is, just checking in with us once a week for like a 30 minute, like we do a lot of these pair prompting sessions, as we call it, where we just do like a 30-minute meet, we share the screen, you bring something nice to drink, a little snack, and you sit and you prompt your way to the answer together, and you both learn something. Um, I think that we need to do a lot on educating the market. I think part of like this is part of it. I think just speaking about what works, what doesn't work, making people feel that they're not alone in this type of stuff. But whether you're like a vibe coder or a like a software engineer or whatever, sitting on your own building something for an extended period of time is a frustrating experience. That is just the way it is. There are times when it's great, there are times when it's not so good. And the way that developers treat it is they use something called rubber ducking. So typically you ask a friend, then you just like by the sheer action of talking about your problems and your frustrations, you go, oh, you know what? Actually, never mind. I just figured it out, right? So I think it's just giving people these outlets. And for us, it's a customer support chat in the product. If you're on certain tiers, it's in Discord just to vent. And I think that's fine. I don't want to discourage that at all. I want people to get passionate and talk about the things that doesn't work and work because they're not alone. This is just where we're at. Next week is a little better, and the next week is a little better. I do fundamentally though believe that if your app or system is important to you, um, you'll get it done.
Sweet.
I think you're describing a huge business opportunity there, and it's about fixing the apps that Vive coders have done, and they don't know how to bring it to the end, right? To finish this app that you have Vive code. And it's quite cool that at some point you're also covering this last mile, that it's actually something that it's needed.
Yeah, if you look at our pricing plans, we have like the 20, 50, and $200 are sort of self-service. So the way that we think about it is that if you're playing around and whatnot, like if you're 20 and $50, you have like a set amount of credits, and then we try to sort of help out through like Discord and community, and there's luckily a bunch of people who's willing to help out and share and learn. On the upper end of that plan, um, you get really fast responses on intercom in product support. So when you have a bug, you ask someone on our team, and then you invite them to your app, and they have a look, and you can add collaborators. So someone will jump in, have a look. Oh, you know what? It's just this little thing. Let me help you out, and then you can continue. And then we have something called like where you both have the agent and a human advisor. So then you have like basically a dedicated person that you can reach out to on like we do joint Slack channels or like WhatsApp channels or whatever, so you can just like get unstuck, which is part of it. And then for the more complex side of things where you're actually like replacing like a bigger tech team with stuff. Then we have like an even higher tier where you do like a meeting a week to like help on structuring the plan, help structuring like how you're gonna attack this, and you know. So I think
Mhm.
I when you ask them whether you can wipe code like a complex system and a scalable app, I actually absolutely think so. But it's a if you're willing to spend the time, then absolutely. If you ask me if you can build any system in a weekend by watching Netflix and vibe coding on the side, then like that is a difficult feat, whatever you do. Um, but there's very few people who's not getting their dreams come true in one way or another, that I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, to finish my question, I did manage to finish my little app, and now it's working. And every day I'm checking in the habit, so it's fully functional. I managed to do it, even though if it was pretty small, I'm satisfied with what I built, and it's useful for me at least. So yeah, aligned to what you just said, it's true.
Cool. Okay, maybe why don't we speak about the future a bit? Because you were mentioning that the price per token is going to go down, and well, it's quite obvious, right? And these models will become cheaper and cheaper, and the kind of things that you will be able to build every time will be bigger. What's your take on the next releases of LLMs? Because we have, on one hand, people thinking that it will stagnate. So it seems that we are reaching a kind of plateau in terms of what future LLMs will be able to achieve. On the other hand, we have people claiming that by 2027 we'll have AGI. What's your take on this? Do you think we'll reach this plateau, or do you think that every time we'll have incremental steps, but it will not be that much progress? Or do you think that there will be a next release that will be astonishing?
I mean, we're about 2 months, 2 months down the road now of sort of DeepSeek releasing, which I think kind of marked a bit of a pivotal point for a lot of people, where you could have something at an insanely low cost with an insanely low like cost structure of the way it's built and trained and used, with the sort of same knowledge as or at least like rubbing shoulders with the O1s of the world. We're finally seeing Google getting serious about this type of space, and their 2.5 their new 2.5 model is looking extremely promising and killing all benchmarks basically. And what's promised at least to be like a GPT-4o type of cost structure on it. Um, I don't worry so much about whether the LLMs will like dramatically increase. My personal belief is that the models that we have today are quite good. I think if you take the analogy that an LLM is sort of mimicking a human brain, and it's a borderline philosophical debate we don't have to go deep into, but there's nothing it looks more like than a human when you speak to the systems. And the human brain has only evolved so much over the past 2,000 years. Despite that, the productivity increase in people has dramatically increased. So I'm a big believer in even if there is no insane like if there's AGI, it's fine. Like then the problem is solved. So it's more interesting to talk about the other case where it doesn't have any more like big inflection points in improvement, right? Which I, for what it's worth, think is probably true that there will be like an insane increase. But even if there's not, I think the amount of stuff you can do with specialized models, like the same way that our economy is sort of specialized over the past couple of 100 years. And then you start to use the particular models for what they're good at, and you start to combine them, and you really start to understand the organizational hierarchy. And maybe it's not one model, maybe the world of the crew AIs and the sort of the agent teams, which I think is still very much on the R&D, the sort of R&D setup today, as sort of sharing context and whatever is a very, very difficult thing to do in reality. Um, I think it's up to us, like not our team, but the people leveraging these things to build the next set of tools, to use them in the right way. And I think that as token price goes down, is probably a bigger and more interesting thing for me to talk about, because that allows you to In the most extreme cases, if you get a model with 100th of the cost, right, you can instead of doing one example, like one attempt at fixing your bug, I can try 100 different times and pick the best one, and I can do that all in parallel, and you wouldn't know. So even that would dramatically improve the quality, because I don't know, like 8 out of 10 times is really good, right? So if you can escalate that into doing like 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 or 1,000,000 in parallel, it's hard for me to understand that you wouldn't be able to get the result you need, right? So I'm a big believer that there's a lot of engineering efforts and like arguably like human effort, so to speak, that can go into leveraging these things in the right way and find the right combinations of which models to use for which type of things, and also to find the correct. This can always be mitigated with guardrails. I think we are a good example of that versus someone like Bolt, which I look up to a lot. I think they're great on a bunch of different things, and an interesting sort of decision there is in Bolt you can, or at least could, build on any framework. So you could build like an Astro website or a React website or a Svelte website or a Vue website. Now I think that if you try to build a system that can build anything, versus if you try to build a system that's supposed to live within some sort of guardrails, so there's a set of decisions that has been taken, I think you can improve the quality and the performance by a lot. So maybe we'll see these like vertical pillars being super well done, similar to how this space sort of panned out in the no-code space, where bubble is great, but it's very difficult, but you can also build everything super complex, super powerful. Whereas something like Squarespace is super easy to build landing pages and websites and sort of blogs, right? So maybe that's the future. Maybe we are being a bit too general in what you can build. Maybe we don't have guardrails enough. So we take a lot of decisions on what databases and what this and what that and what front ends and what back ends and how you deploy it. And like we try to remove those decisions, let's say, from the LLMs today. Maybe it becomes verticalized in that way, but I spend very little of my time worrying about LLMs being our weak point in enabling our users and customers to do what they need. I do not think it's a LLM constraint today, but we'll see.
And on the line of about the future, also like more focus to Databutton. I don't know the numbers. I don't know if you know the numbers, but I'd like to ask if it's publicly available. Well, how many users did you have in December? Monthly active users did you have in December 2024? How many monthly active users do you have today? And how many monthly active users do you plan on having by the end of 2025? We've seen Lovable all over the place. I feel like everyone now, about when they hear vibe coding, they go to Lovable. Databutton is starting to grow. I personally switched. I say publicly. I started with Lovable. I then played with Databutton, and now I switched to Databutton as my go-to. I don't know if everyone is taking this approach, but yeah, I'd love to hear the numbers and also like what are the kind of plans for the future according to your growth.
Mm. We're growing very fast at the moment. So we're basically growing. I think it's like 30% week over week or some insane numbers. So we're seeing
30% a week.
similarly. Yes, it's going
Wow.
insanely fast. But there's only so many of those people we learn from. So what we obsess about as a team and what our culture is all about is helping customers succeed with their applications. Which means that we take a lot of pride in retention. So we take a lot of pride in making people succeed, and we, as mentioned earlier, like we host all the apps and everything too. So we have a good understanding of the life cycle of an application and how well people are doing. So we're more obsessed with people succeeding with their application, and we by that remark we also don't have such a generous free tiers and whatever as the rest of these tools out there. We do like human in the loop for a lot of these people on various accounts, on the same dimension that we really want to help people succeed with their stuff. So we focus a lot more on the sort of upper 40% of the users that sort of fly through. I think I think for the lighter weight use cases, I don't think there's much difference basically on whichever. I think there's a lot of good tools, and I think we're sort of approaching like a personal opinion standpoint. Maybe in October and November, like there was like some stronger outliers on like who's best on this and that and this and that. But now I think everyone is pretty good on like the average case, and I think we'll start to see that people are and that the various players in the field are like honing in on a set of things that we worry about when and what we really believe in is to enable like the next set of businesses to run more efficient and the next set of businesses to not need huge consultancy arms or huge tech teams to experiment and basically optimize their business, right? So I think you'll see commercially for the other tools, I think that as they start to understand who they really care about, who they have empathy for, who they want to hone in on, I think that while these tools have been looking very similar for the past 6 months or so, I think we'll start to see some divergence on what they really care about, what they really focus on. You'll see some do like stronger Figma integrations and visual editing and stuff to lean into a set of things that are important for someone. You'll see someone lean more into more autonomy, less control, more work for you, right? So I think we'll more see this thing sort of cement in a way moving forward. But I think that um I do think that like Lovable is exceptional. Like their growth and their marketing effort, and like we know, like we're from Norway, Lovable is from Sweden, so it's a small world. So it's just exciting that there's a European movement. I
Definitely.
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that is kind of challenging the Bolts and the Replicits and the V0s of the world and the traditional like San Francisco setups. I think that's super
same.
exciting, and I think we're doing nothing but cheering each other on. And I think we're learning a lot from each other as we go, to be honest, and finding our
I
place in that
love.
way.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring that up, but I do love that both Lovable and Databutton are amazing software tool, 100% developed in Europe, and I love that because there's been a lot around the topic of that Europe is not advanced, it's not innovative, it's not investing in tech and all of that. So this is a great topic. Danny, I don't know if you want to add any questions before our last round of fire questions. We like to have a last round of fire questions, short answers, just to keep things a little like more fun of the book, not of the books, but less related to the topic.
Yeah, maybe let me throw one last question. It's a bit longer, and then you go with the one shot.
Yeah, go for it.
So you are an AI solutions provider. Let's call it this way. How do you use AI within your company?
Um, well, first of all, like we're all, of course, like everyone dev, like the world of software engineering has fundamentally changed. So like, of course, every developer uses their favorite like AI powered IDE, whether that's Cursor or Windsurf or like the VS Codes of the world. So that's kind of a given. But we also do a lot on we also use like a lot of agents for like enhancing our support functions, for instance. So instead of humans going through everything, like we do a bunch of like summarizations and understanding and like delegating the easy parts, but very few fully autonomous setups, I would say, from like a optimization point of view, but a lot of like accelerators. Like for those who's familiar with the tech space and have used like say Databutton or Cursor or Windsurf or something like that, I think the way that we think about it is that every function should have that thing that just makes you a bunch of faster on what you do and removes the leaf nodes of the work, so to speak. I think that's what someone like Cursor is doing very well. Where as long as you can express what you want, you don't have to write all the curly brackets and all the stuff and all the syntaxes and all the stuff, right? You can explain what you do and you get help, so you just get more efficient. So we do a lot of that to sort of run our own business internally. We have a multitude of Databot apps to like optimize and learn and dashboards and understandings and like segmentations and all that kind of stuff. Um, so we try to use it basically everywhere we can. We are, as I said, a team of 8 people now, and I think one reason why you can allow yourself to do that while you're scaling as fast as we are is because it's a bit of a new world to run this type of businesses, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that once you've done it 100 times, you can delegate part or a bigger part of that to an agent system. I really do. So like we use MCPs a lot internally to worry about everything, like everything Stripe, everything financial related. Yes, we use Intercom heavily as a in-product support tool. There's a bunch of agents running around understanding and learning and sort of propagating those learnings back into humans and the next stages and stuff. So a lot around our processes are sort of AI driven, might be extreme, but certainly AI enhanced all of these workflows, yes. And it's something we invest quite a lot in. I mean, we're lucky to. I mean, we also like we have to dogfood our own stuff and whatnot. So like we build a bunch of stuff, of course, in Databutton. But everyone has at least one Databutton app, which is their cursor for like the workflow that they're running, basically.
Nice.
And I would advise everyone to do the same because it's insane.
Yeah. Are you a supporter of frameworks to build agents like LangGraph, LangChain, or do you prefer to?
I have and are a huge fan of formerly PyData, now called Agno.
Agno? Yeah.
That has been my
See.
favorite Python framework to build agents. I think it's clean and minimalistic. I think a lot of the stuff in this space now is unnecessarily overcomplicated. And I think that the big benefit is not in tweaking the 95 to 98% stuff, but getting something up that's working and running that you can change fast. I'm a big believer in iteration speed. So I think that the fewer moving pieces you have, the faster you can learn, the faster you can move. So Agno, I think is great for, for that type of stuff. Um, that's kind of the default that you get in Databutton. If you ask to build an AI agent, it's very likely to suggest you Agno unless your use case needs something that it doesn't support and stuff. So it's I have my code where my mind where my mouth is, so to speak. Yeah, big fan of that. Also, of course, LangChain is used. Like just the breadth of LangChain is insane. The amount of doc loaders and the amount of like ingestion, services they have and whatever is fantastic. Um, and also, of course, the perplexities of the world and the Excels and the use searches and these type of things, I think is good. Um, but I'm waiting for the same revolution to happen in the deep research space. That's what I'm looking forward to next. I can't wait until Agno has some out of the box flows built for like deep research or like OpenAI gives out like some API for that type of thing. I think that'll be the next inflection point in, if not all of these tools, at least for someone like ourselves, which is heavily trying to remove the human from the inner part of the loop, meaning that it's easy to foresee that when you click like, I want to start this particular task of building like a registration system with 3 profiles, then it goes out, does deep research, checks the internet, checks its code base, checks previous attempts at doing it and all that kind of stuff and spends maybe 5 minutes, that's fine. Does a good write-up. Because if your task is well described, an agent can execute on it. But the biggest problem is that it's typically not well. There's too many ways to misinterpret the task at hand. I think is the number one problem in the world of like agents at the minute. People greatly underestimate how much context you need to share and how much is left in your mind as you say,
Yeah.
please fix this page.
Yeah. Yeah. See. See. Super. I mean, that's an amazing way very insightful way to close I guess the podcast before these last questions. They are, well, not so much focused on AI, but also a little bit about you. We haven't spoken much about you, and you have an amazing background. So you have built you've co-founded over what 5, 6, 7 companies, somewhere around there, with if I'm not wrong, a successful exit and some successful outputs. The question is, what did you believe in the early years that sounds totally ridiculous right now?
Oh, that AI was only hype.
Okay.
Hmm.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I lived
Short
in the
and straight
world
to the
of big
point.
data stuff. I was in the world of big data stuff, and I saw the ROI on the vast majority of like data science and ML implementations across like marketing and operations and stuff. And the ROI was very low. And the pragmatic the pragmatic full stack developer, I believe, was the hero of the last era, and not the data scientist. Mm.
Okay. That's, I guess, very aligned answer to the topic. And then if you could have a new skill given to you right now, that you lack, of course, what would it be? Soft skill, hard skill, whatever it is.
That's very hard. I have two. Can I do two?
Yeah, of course. Go for the.
Um, One is to be better at communicating to people. That's something I want to be better at. I don't do it a lot, and things like this is a great arena for me to train on that. Uh, so that's part of why I'm here. The second is to play the saxophone, or to play any saxophone, trumpet, trombone, that type of instrument. It's been a long-lasting dream of mine.
Okay.
Never had time to pick it up.
For some reason, it came out to my head like he's gonna say something about like playing an instrument. I don't know. It's something like if you don't have the skill, it's you always kind of it's there.
Hmm.
And regarding communication, I think you're quite a great communicator after this podcast. You've done great. Like, I don't know, that's my feedback. You're very good at it. I'm not in your team,
I'm
so I don't know
learning.
how it goes day to day, but it was like a pretty solid podcast. You communicated very effectively, very clear, with a smile on the face all the time, which I think that is something that everyone appreciates. So we've had a great time with you, Martin. It was an amazing conversation. We learned so much, and I'm pretty sure that the audience is going to be very grateful for this. I only wish but the best for Databutton for the upcoming months. I feel like that we're lucky to have you here. In a couple months, we'll be able to brag like, hey, Martin was in our podcast back in the day. So yeah, just wishing you nothing but the best. Thank you so much, Martin.
Thank you very much. Likewise.